Okay, get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Teshri, you want to start?
Okay, Sunitha ji. Om Partaya Pradibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Graditam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Rudavarshinim Bhagavatim Astadasadhyayinim Ambatvamanusandadami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadvesinim. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullaravindaya Tapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamrutuduhe Namaha.
वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you. So sorry for a short delay in joining. I was trying to connect to two different networks, and finally, I hope this will work. Otherwise, I may have to go back to hotspot. So
No,
let
this
me
is
know at
fine.
any point. But now it's, I think, clear and everything, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is clear. Hari Om.
Very great. Thank you,
Hari
Ananji.
Om. Yes, it is
Hari Om.
very clear.
Thank you. So we've been looking from the 13th verse onwards on this topic of Gneyam. So if you remember, these were the 6 topics that Arjuna absolute Param Brahma of the Upanishads. So last week we just started discussing about this, and he says Anadi Mat Param Brahma na sat tanna sat uchyate, right? So from there on, then Krishna starts to explain about what that the qualities, I would say, or for lack of a better word, because that Parabrahma actually doesn't even have any qualities. It is, you cannot even express that in the form or in the way that we are used to, right? So it is so subtle. And so that is the aspect which actually in this last phase of Tattvamasi we are trying to describe. So, he starts to say that, that Brahma is Nirgunam, that is formless, and it is free of all these definitions that we are trying to define it by, and therefore it is, you cannot make it available through all these pancha, the 5 sense organs, and also it is in the form of the like some
Sunitha, you're
examples.
freezing. I don't know.
And so this Nirgunam is really the very existence. So it is literally the whole forms are resting on a formless substratum. And it is everywhere, and um it is actually all these objects that we see are forms, they all are on top of this existence substrate, which is this Parabrahma. So we started off with in 15th shloka, for example, as I said, even though it is formless, it is known by the functions, by the senses. None of the our breathing, our seeing, all that cannot happen without that aspect of the formless existence, which is also nothing but consciousness. And that Parabrahma is also unattached. It's almost, the simplest example we can think of is the hand in a glove. The whole glove rests on the hand, but is it really attached to the hand? Not really. So, both of them are not attached to each other, right? So, it is, in that sense, it is there everywhere, and it is yet devoid of any gunas. It is that nirgunam, and yet it is that experiencer also, bhoktra, which is the experiencer of the qualities. So that is what we did. I'll skip all this. We did all this, and this is, I think, where Usha had asked the question last time about, how can we really, it is that form that we are all attached to. It is that form which gives us a sense of security, and that is true. It is only in the form when that Parabrahma takes on the form does uh, it also act as the, what should I say, as the giver of boons for us. You know, as a formless, there is no way that Nirguna Brahma can do anything with us. So, taking that form, we have that ability to experience whatever is going on in the world. So, that is the form of, so we are used to having the form all the time for us in our journey, right? So then in shloka number 816, there is more explanation of the fact that, it exists outside and it exists inside. So what is that? So this example of the pot and the clay and outside space and room space, all this we can actually understand the aspect of it. And here he brings this aspect of acharam and charam. So not only is it non-moving, but it is also the moving aspect of it. So, and it is so subtle because we can't, and then it is far away and yet so near. So why is he saying it's so far away and yet so near? Because it is like, as an example, space. Space is here everywhere. We can actually feel it. Well, we can't really feel it, but we can understand it is there, and so it is that near for us, and it is also far away. It is, as far as you can think, it is because it's all pervasive. So being all pervasive, it can be even considered as, which is really far away. So that is what the bahirantascha acharam, bahi means outside the body, antaha mean inside. And because this concept is so subtle, we use, the word Satchit also, and then, sitting in one place. So we, for example, with Lord Narayana is with Shankar Chakra, etc. So do we mean by that, that he's inside and everywhere? So if the thing is, Narayana is both inside and outside. He has to be formless existence, and in that formless existence, he is everywhere. And we cannot really think of an all-pervading Narayana unless we think of the pure existence. Therefore, Bhairantasya Bhutanam, Bhutani means all living beings, and Acharam Eva, it's moving and non-moving. So, even though they seem to be, a contradictory. How can he be, moving and not moving? So it's actually what we mean is, as a medium, it's not, it's not the medium which talks and tells, it's a medium which manifests. So, in all these things, just trying to show that it's moving. So, anyway, we did all this last week. I will just, and then it is very sukshma, because it's very, very difficult for us to really comprehend, right? So, as we have lesser and lesser amount of things to comprehend, the more and more difficult it is for us to really understand what it is. That is why I think nowadays we are putting more and more kind of attributes so that it becomes easier and easier to understand. But the more and more attributes we put to anything, it becomes even more difficult for us to comprehend. So even with this five Pancha Mahabhutas, right? For example, with earth, earth is the grossest thing we can recognize because it can be recognized by literally all the five um, ways, we can, by sparsha, by words, we can recognize it. We can recognize it by the form. We can recognize it by the smell, rasa, I'm sorry, gandha, and taste. So all five is there. But when we come to water, for example, it's got only four attributes. We can, it's shabda, we can describe it by words, by the form, by roop, by rasa. But water does not have any smell. So that is the aspect of it. So it has only four attributes. And then if you look at fire, for example, fire has, Shabda, Rasa, and Rupa. But fire doesn't have any taste. So that is about, and then if you look at even more subtler, Agni, the next one is Vayu or air. It's got, we can describe it by words, and it has, there is sound also. So there is sound and there is touch, but there is no form for air. But finally, when we come to our space, so space doesn't have any form, it doesn't have any rasa, it doesn't have any smell, all these things. So Akasha, the only thing is that it has got a only what should I say? Therefore, it's only shabda. We can describe it by words. So this is how, but Brahman is even more subtler than that. All five things cannot be used to describe Brahman. So in shloka number 17, he further describes actually how the distortion that is created by the upadhis or conditionings in our understanding. He begins actually by first saying that this Brahman or this eternal essence is undivided, it is unbroken, it is continuous, it cannot be chopped into pieces. But because of the effect of space, as upadhi, as one of the subtlest of all the elements, it appears as uh, if that Parabrahma, that it exists differently in various beings. So that is the aspect of it. He comes here and he says, Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva chastitam bhutabrit cha tatneyam grasishnu prabha vishnu cha. It's like, the example that we always give about ocean and waves. When the ocean, when you're looking at it as a mass of water, it looks like it's all totally undivided. Avibhaktam, you know. But still, the form of the waves, that seems to divide this ocean, correct? So it is undivided, yet it appears to be divided by these waveforms, right? So that is how we can conceptualize through this analogy on what this Parabrahma is. So avibhaktam cha bhuteshu, vibhaktam iva cha sthitam, and it is, and he's known to be the sustainer of all beings and also the devourer and originator. So really talking about this concept of creation, that he's the originator, and this one, he's in control over all three stages of creation. And from this we can actually sort of deduce that he is the one who is eternal. Parabrahma is the one which is eternal. So um, Prabha Vishnu, Grasishnu, Bhutabrit. So Prabha Vishnu means Srishti Karanam, and Grasishnu means the Laya Karanam. Srishti, there is creation. Laya Karanam. So Prabhava actually means, Utpatti. Utpatti, which is the rising of it. Grasishnu basically, literally means the one which is being put to sleep, is a swallower. And Bhutabrit is the Sthiti Karanam, or the sustainer, you know. So, so it is that Parabrahma which is the cause for the creation, the cause for the sustenance, and the cause for even the Laya part of it, which is the destruction, if you want to think about, or sometimes we call constructive recycler, right? So it is out of that Brahman alone, all this Nama Rupa has really come about. So, moving on to shloka number 18. So, after Lord Krishna has really described all these qualities, this description of Parabrahma, which is actually already given in the Upanishads. And here, uh, through trying to describe it through known means, we are trying to describe that Parabrahman which is Nirgunam, which is free of all attributes, and therefore, totally unavailable for the sensory, this one. So he starts to describe this again. So, in a even more powerful way, um, to show that, if indeed that Brahman is, what should I say, indescribable, so does it mean that that Brahman is in complete darkness? Is that really the case? So the shloka is so beautiful, and it is a very popular shloka too. And I'm sure as you're reading it too, you'll be able to relate it to some of the Upanishadic mantras as well, Jyotishamaphi tajyotihi, Jyotishamaphi tajyotihi, tamasaf param Tamasaf paramuchyate. Tamasaf paramuchyate. Jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam. Jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam. Hridi sarvasya vishtitam. Hridi sarvasya vishtitam. So here we are looking at the effulgence. So previously, we looked at sort of the all pervasiveness, the omniscient aspect. Now here we're looking at the effulgence. So this aspect is really considered here with respect to light. So just like, we have the light which has a power to remove darkness. So this metaphor is used to describe how the effulgence by which the darkness of ignorance is removed from us. So it is that light which gives light to everything, you know. So this is what he's saying. Jyotisham api tat jyoti jyotisham. Among all the lights, this Brahma is the light of all that, and is said to lead us beyond darkness. So, just like light removes darkness, so too this light of knowledge removes us from ignorance. And Jnanam, Gneyam, Jnanagamyam, knowledge of the means and of the goal are both needed to lead us to the goal of knowledge. So we saw earlier how Jnanam, which was referring to the 20 values, those 20 values are steps by which are the steps leading us to the goal. So that jnanam, and then that which is to be known, which is Neyam, that is the last two values, if you remember, that the last two, I'm just not able to think about it immediately, but the last two values, which is referring to how we have to keep the goal in front. So Gneyam, that which is to be known, and Jnanagamya, which is a goal of knowledge. So knowledge of the means and the goal are both needed to lead us to the knowledge, goal of knowledge. So which is located in a Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam, which is residing in each one of us. So I'm sure as you were reading this, the famous shlokas, Na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nam nema vidyuto bhanti kuto magnihi comes to your mind, I'm sure, very quickly from this Mundaka Upanishad. Um, so that is one. And then the other one from this Hiranmaye Pare Kashe, this both these shlokas from Mundaka Upanishad is the reference to show that, how Bhagavad Gita is, the Upanishadic truth is what is already given here, right? So to show that, that consciousness' existence, and he describes this word, that consciousness and existence, by this Jyotisham api Jyotihi. So that is the same thing which is coming here. So he borrows this Upanishad from Mundaka Upanishad, and so Jyotisham api Jyoti. So
Hariom.
yes, Anand.
Yeah, thanks for referring to the Upanishads. For the previous sloka, on the Lord Narayana, there is in the Purush Suktam, which is from the Vedas, it
Correct.
comes like Anta Bahisya Sarvasyam Vyapti Narayana Sthita. So he's in
Correct.
and out of everything.
Yes, you're referring to this Prabhavishnum Grasishnum Bhutabhrit, right?
Yes,
Yeah. In fact, Vishnum, Jishnum, Prabhavishnum, that also from Vishnu Sahasranamam.
right.
But can you repeat that line again one more time, Anand? That was beautiful. Antar,
Yeah, there's a Purush Suktam.
Purusha
It
Suktam.
goes
Sorry,
like,
you were referring to
yes.
Purusha Suktam. Yes.
Yes, yes. It
Uh-huh.
goes like Anta Bahisya Sarvasya Vyapti Narayana Sthita.
Right. So Purusha Suktam, Vishnu Sahasranam, all of them also refer to this aspect of Narayana, and here in this one, of course, a direct reference to Upanishads is seen. Jyotisham api Jyoti, meaning the light of lights, and here the reference is also to other Upanishads like Keno Upanishad. In Keno Upanishad, he talks about, the eye of the eye, the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, all this. So like that, Jyotisham api Jyoti. So the light of all lights. So in Vedanta, we use the word light in a technical sense also. Light is defined, or we refer to light as in a very technical way, isn't it? We say that, light is that in whose presence things are known, right? So from that point, all the bodies, whether it's the sun, moon, all of them, even stars, even though some of them are borrowed light, we say that, all these are light. So in that sense, that this is the light which everything has borrowed light, including the sun. So during the daytime, we see, from the sunlight alone, we get to see all the objects. And uh, during the night, we have the moon, because of which we say this one. So in here, I don't know if you're all familiar with this Ekashloki. Kim jyotistava bhanuman ahnime ratrau pradipadikam syadevam ravidipa darshana vido kim jyotirakya hime. It's very beautiful. I wanted to put that shloka in here. It's called the Eka Shloki, and in that one shloka, how Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya describes about how that one light, everything else gets known. It is at the end of the day that one light alone, which is the permanent light. So maybe next week I'll put that shloka up and we'll go through it a little bit because it's just a very beautiful shloka. So Param Tamasa Uchyate. So this light is unique in the sense it is the Param light which is Tamasa Uchyate, which takes care of darkness. So that light can illumine, so the light that can illumine everything, all our bodies, our head, this computer, etc., everything. A light can illumine everything, but that light cannot illumine one thing, and that is it cannot illumine darkness, correct? This light is needed to illumine the darkness. But what is that light that is there even when darkness is there? So that's what we are referring to as that light, because of which everything else is known, and that light which exists even in darkness is that Parabrahma. So, Jnanam Gneyam Jnanagamyam Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam. So, this light or this Satchit, this one, which is there, is everywhere and it resides, Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam. It is in the heart of everyone, which is indicating that it is pervasive, it is everywhere, and it is that Brahma. So where can we describe this? Of course, like we said, it is everywhere, it is all pervading. And so with this, we come to the end of the topic of that Gneyam, okay? That goal which we need to reach. And so with this, this topic is really complete. So, any thoughts or any questions now on this name, which is what we have to know? So far, we all live a life where we think we have to know all these other subjects which gives us job skills and everything. We think we need to say study a lot of shlokas and everything, but even those shlokas, everything, they actually point to only this gnayam, which is the thing to be known. So are we kind of clear of what is it that needs that we really need to know? Any thoughts, any questions?
Hari Om.
Yeah, go ahead, Suvarna.
eh, uh, uh, when we say that the light of knowledge
Yes,
is what illuminates the darkness within us and also helps us recognize the darkness that is outside.
correct.
So, okay. It's a little difficult. It's a deep topic. It's not something that words can easily I'm unable to explain what it is that's going on in my head. Yeah.
No, but what you said is correct. It is that knowledge which helps me to learn every other knowledge. And it is that knowledge which is the knowledge of the knowledge. Um, and that is that knowledge we really need to um, we need to understand. I can even just stop it at that point. Of course, The one more step at the end of the day is Krishna is going to say that knowledge is who you are, you know. So that jump, we will come to it a little very soon,
Later.
actually.
Yes. Yeah.
But in this one, he's still, so, we learned about all that 20 values, which was helping us to kind of purify our mind and kind of create that motivation to know what my next goal is. Okay. Um, and what is that next goal? He has described it so far. Have we really understood, bought into it? Maybe, maybe not, in the sense, because this requires literally a lot of sort of undoing, a lot of reflection. It requires also for us to sit down and reflect on so many different things. For example, we think that, okay, I think I need this knowledge. I mean, especially, let's see, I mean, today with so many different AI tools coming up, I feel that I have to spend more and more time learning all these AI tools and what is really artificial intelligence. In fact, I mean, maybe just a little sort of a joke on here is even to know artificial intelligence, I have to know what is the real intelligence which is allowing me to learn what is artificial intelligence. So, what is that intelligence? Where is that intelligence coming from? What is it that is powering up something within me in order to learn all these aspects of artificial intelligence? See, everything else, finally, what we are learning today is only a process, you know. Um, and it's in the beginning of my session also, I was talking about how, we are trying to use more and more definitions in order to survive in this world. Okay. By learning more and more definitions about different things, we have made our lives so very complicated. And also, the other aspect is um, earlier people, I mean, this is now, I'm diverting from the topic a little bit, but just to give you an idea, so many different discoveries which have been made in India by the ancient rishis, right? they did not use they did not actually do any experiments in the lab, or they did not actually use microscopes, all those things, for example, even to come up with what is the distance from here to the moon, or distance to the sun, maybe, or all these things. They were able to fathom everything just by sheer um, thinking and everything. But we have, over a period of time, because of science and everything, we have brought in so many different instruments, and we have tried to learn more and more about this. But in the process, what has happened is we have lost the connection between what is a process and what is the goal. We are spending more and more time on the process of acquiring knowledge, and so much so that we have forgotten what are the techniques that is used even to learn about the actual goal of life. So this is where this topic is very, very important. Or in this six shlokas, he's trying to explain the um, goal, and to tell us that the goal cannot be achieved or cannot be understood through the normal means of knowledge, which is all the five sense organs and everything. Um, but ultimately, for us, if we spend more time understanding this Jnayam, literally, I think our minds and everything will be a lot more much. We will really, first of all, you need the clarity of mind in order to understand this. But once I understand this topic, my whole purpose of my life will also become very clear. That is why this topic has been taken.
Hari Om.
Any, yeah, go ahead, Anand.
Yeah, in the context of light and darkness, I'm just remembering a quote from Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. Yeah, he was used to say, a cave may be in the dark for thousands of years, but once we put the light, the darkness goes away.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly. The darkness would have been there for so many years, but just that one light, a very beautiful example, very so apt also for all of us. We are today, in that sense, by working more and more and more in trying to get to newer and newer technologies, we are living more in the life of darkness. And but even that, if I understand this topic even a little bit, it can remove that ignorance of what the darkness means. That doesn't mean that we do not want artificial intelligence. We do need all these processes to make our life simpler, but we have to be able to make a distinction on what is true knowledge and what is this kind of process knowledge, what we're talking about as, with AI and all that. So now coming to the shloka number 19. So in shloka number 19, he essentially concludes this whole topic of Neya. So we just to again to summarize, we spoke about kshetra in shlokas 5, 6, and we talked about all the modifications and everything. Now, Krishna says that those who have acquired this essence, they are qualified to attain the state of Ishvara. But this state cannot be attained unless we become a devotee of Ishvara. Okay? So, even though he's described all these qualities of Neyam, how can we really understand Neyam? He says, you have to become devotee. And this is what he says. Iti kshetram tatha jnanam jneyam choktam samasataha madbhaktaha. That is the word. So madbhaktaha etad vijaniya madbhavo madbhavaya I'm sorry, madbhavo vayopapadyate. Iti kshetram tatha jnanam jneyam choktam samasataha madbhakta etad vijnaya madbhavayopapadyate. So he says, so this, as I said, it's a concluding verse. And, who is really the adhikari for such kind of knowledge? Can everyone, I'm sure, we also must have thought about this. How many of them really want to know what the final goal of life is, right? In order to understand the final goal of life, one has to be a good adhikari. So, and who is the adhikari? The adhikari is mad bhaktaha, my devotee, you know. And uh, so, iti kshetram tatha jnanam. So, kshetram, jnanam, jneyam. So, this is the field, the knowledge, and what is to be known. And and then he talks about the prayojanam, mad bhavaya upapadyate. So only that person has that, the purpose is achieved here, who has a competence to enter into the state, and uh, it is and by doing so, a clear understanding is really held. So in this manner, kshetram tatha jnanam neyam and yuktam has been described in very brief. Yes, Krishna has said it in brief, and we have, of course, taken almost 6 months or whatever just to understand from this jnanam and everything. Samasataha in brief, madbhaktaha, this, and only such a person is qualified, who has gone through all these three things. So that is what he's trying to say here. And in a sense, this brings, like, there are four phases of knowledge here. So the jnanam, which is what we did first, represented by the 20 values. Then we try to understand what is it that we need to know, which is the goal. So Neyam, we did that also, which really points to the truth. right? So this was represented from this 13 to 18, what we did. Now we're going to be entering into the next phase on really understanding how did we really get into all this? What is it that is keeping us in ignorance or bondage? And now, so that part of it, we're going to get into it. And once we understand what got us into this bondage from these shlokas, almost like 20 to 26, then we will come to the phase 4 of how are we going to reverse this. Okay. So third and fourth is, we'll deal with this bondage. And finally, what can lead us to moksha. So we will see that part of it. So mad bhaktaha, so by grasping what follows, this is what is what we will study here. So really, what is the significance of this verse for us? By doing so. So the idea is that from a very broad perspective, we have actually studied what is the Tvampada, which is all about the individual's journey to the ultimate or the divine. So we have come across the description of the Sthita Prajna, but we have not been told much about how he got to this place, right? So then when we did this seven shlok, verse chapters 7 through 12, we learned a lot about the universe, the vibhutis, the glories, all this, we saw that. So basically, again, that was a lot about the knowledge of the vaster realm of that individual, right? But now, as we're getting into the last phase, which is 13 through the 18 chapters, we are really about going to receive the knowledge of a third type. It is a knowledge about how to reach that goal and what should be done, and how now we have to think about actually looking inward for this one. So what are the changes we need to do within ourselves in order to attain this ultimate goal? So from that standpoint, it's a very significant change is actually shown in this shloka number 19 here. Now we can't, having come up to this point, no longer can we just say, okay, we are done or anything. We're now actually uh, kind of asked to apply this knowledge to our spiritual journey. So in other words, uh, whatever we want to listen so far, that is some amount of clarity is already given here. So in some sense, even a reflection part is over. And now we're entering into literally the phases of 3 and 4, which is telling us, how did we get to where we are today? And what is it that we really need to do over here? So let's get into that phase number 3, which is all about Prakriti and Purusha. So this deals with, we had talked about the 6 terms, right? So far, so Kshetram, Kshetrajnam, and then Jnanam, Neyam, all that is done. Now we are going to study really about what is Prakriti and Purusha. So this understanding will really allow us to get that connection between we as individuals, so to the Prakriti itself. So Prakriti's connection with Kshetra, we learn about Purusha's connection with Kshetrajnam, and all this in this particular aspect of it. So let's do shloka number 20 here, because it's very Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidhinati Ubhavapi Vidhyanati Ubhavapi Vikaramsha Gunamshaiva Vikaramsha Gunamshaiva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. So, Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi. So, Prakritim, which is matter, as well as spirit, which is soul, understand Vidhi, understand them to be Anadhi. Okay, know both of them to be beginningless. Ubhav, both of them to be Anadi. So Prakriti and Purusha are always, they are found together, they're inseparable, but both of them are beginningless. So understand that these two are beginningless, which is, so Anadi is actually nothing but just a technical word that means that which is the um, I mean, how do we understand this word beginningless? Beginningless basically is if I were to keep on, going back and back for anything. For example, we say this phone is made of plastic. Where did plastic come from? Plastic is molded plastic. And where did the mold thing come from? It came from the ships. I mean, again, I'm using a chemistry example. You had these balls of big polymers or whatever. Where did the polymer come from? Monomer came from oil. Where did oil come from? Earth. If we keep on going back, then you will find that it has come from something, right? So here he's trying to say that both Prakritim and Purusham are beginningless. There is no cause, it has nothing before to produce it. Okay, so we've actually in 13th verse we came across this word, where the beginningless of Brahman was actually mentioned. Another word has come before, and this beginningless of both also suggests that there's a link between both of them, Prakriti and Purusha. So far, like if you look at the flow of how the thing has come about in this chapter, we learned the means to get to a goal. We learned what the goal is, but how are we going to link both of them, right? So that is why these words, Prakriti and Purusha, have come about so that we'll be able to relate to both of them also. Okay. And the next, the second, the third and the fourth lines or parts here, which is Vikaran, the modifications, which is Vikara, plus all the gunas, the qualities, know Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan, know that they're born out of the matter. Okay. So um, that is the part of it. So I'll just put this diagram here and we can, I'll go through it a little bit to explain what do we mean the vikaramscha. He says vikaramscha with the vikarancha gunancha eva. So what do we mean by, what are the five kind of modifications? We have touched upon this long time before also, and it's a very beautiful thing to show the modifications that the whole
I can't hear you, Sunita. You're frozen?
I think she's frozen. Hariom, yeah.
Yeah.
absolute existence, and then there's a birth which happens, and then there is a growth, just like a child growing, you grow to some extent. Then there's a maturity stage, and then the body starts to decay, apakshiyate, after a certain stage. And I think many of us are sort of, can feel that decay happening in some form or the other, which so we are in that apakshiyate, and then finally vinashyati, the death happens. So these are the Shad Vikaram, which is talking about, and also the three gunas, which is the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, which are also we might call are the basic building blocks of Maya itself. So they are the constituents, and they are responsible for the mental makeup of each individual. So the ego sense itself is a product of actually our gunas. So whatever happens in nature is also nothing but the combination of these three qualities. And we have seen this in third chapter also about, this composition of the nature itself. So these basically give the respective characteristics. So that is what he's referring to. And we'll see the connection of all of them next week. Okay. Any other thing to add here? So we will be doing shlokas 20, which talks about this connection now. And then we'll be able to connect all of them as the Tattvamasi aspect of it as well. Okay, so we'll stop then at the stage. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.